that just gave me the chills.
All right, let me conclude.
Oh dear God. Oh dear God.
Oh dear God.
Oh dear God.
This is a statement from Donald Trump, quote,
Oh dear God.
"We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran," etc.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. We turn now to Gaza, where the death toll from an Israeli attack on aid seekers in Khan Yunis Tuesday has reached 70. Hundreds of Palestinians were also wounded. Israeli forces attacked using tanks, drones, machine guns on crowds gathered hoping to receive bags of flour. A spokesperson for the Gaza Civil Defense said, quote, Israeli drones fired at the citizens. Some minutes later, Israeli tanks fired several shells at the citizens, which led to a large number of martyrs and wounded, unquote. This is Dr. Mark Brunner, a doctor from Oregon, who's volunteering at the Nasser Hospital.
Every time we know that there's a few so-called food distribution, we know that there's going to be annihilation. And, you know, the first couple of days, we were seeing a lot of isolated injuries, head or chest or abdomen. But today, it's reported that tanks have been used at the food distribution centers, which makes sense because we're seeing multi-trauma. We're seeing head, neck, chest, abdomen, extremities, many, many deaths. And it just doesn't have to be this way. You know, this is something that's just got to stop.
This comes as a group of UN experts in Geneva told the UN Human Rights Council Israel's committing war crimes and the crime against humanity of extermination. For more, we're joined by the Pulitzer Prize-winning poet, the Palestinian author, Mosab Abu Toha. His latest piece is headlined, What Gaza Needs Now, in the New Yorker magazine. Mosab joins us from Syracuse, New York, where he has moved from Gaza with his family. Mosab, welcome back to Democracy Now! Your latest piece is devastating. You write, my family is starving. My neighbors are dying. I'm compelled to share these injustices because they need to stop. Tell us about your constant conversations with people in Gaza, some soon after die, and what you're calling for now.
Thank you so much, Amy, for having me again. Thank you so much, Democracy Now!, for amplifying the stories that do not, unfortunately, get to be heard by mainstream media. As I said in my piece, the aim of writing these stories and sharing them with the outside world, because you know there was full internet blackout for the past few days. It was fixed, and now it's not working. So the hope of sharing the news and sharing stories is that these stories will not happen again and again. And just a few hours after I published the piece, there was another massacre of aid seekers, whether in North Gaza or in the middle of the Gaza Strip or in Rafah. If we're going to talk about, you know, the trouble of or the risk of going to get aid, yesterday there was a massacre, a huge massacre on the Rashid Street on the beach of Gaza City. More than 60 people were killed while trying to get aid from the trucks that were entering from Israel. These 60s were just part of the 100 people who were killed only yesterday. This morning, I want to tell you what happened today, local time in Gaza, after 3 a.m. Now in Gaza it is at 4 or 3 a.m. So since 3 a.m., Israel bombed a tent in Khan Yunis. At 3 a.m., 5 people were killed. 3 of them were from one same family, a father and his 2 children. And then there were early reports that Israel was targeting Palestinians who were seeking aid near the Netzarim distribution, they call it distribution site. 11 people were killed These are confirmed people who were killed, and 70 people were wounded. And then there was an airstrike on a tent in Khan Yunis, in Mawasi Khan Yunis, so-called humanitarian zone or non-combat zone. 6 people were killed. And then there was another airstrike, and this is devastating. We just got the names. There was an airstrike on a house in Zaytun neighborhood in Gaza City. 8 people were killed. Of them, there were 7 children, and I just posted their names, if you allow me to read the names of these kids. Their names are Zaid, Bisan, Muhammad, Asil, Sama, Lama, Saad. So these are 7 kids from Mansour family who were killed today morning at 3 a.m. local time. And then as we were talking, there are reports that 3 people were killed near the aid site in Rafah. And just an hour ago, 3 people were killed near the Ahli Baptist Hospital in Gaza City, close to the Shurafa roundabout. So I just read to you the news of what has been happening in Gaza in the past, less than 12 hours, in the past 12 hours. So people continue to starve, and there are lots of lying that I hear on the news that Israel distributed, or this so-called humanitarian foundation, distributed 13 million meals. These are big lies. What meals? I mean, my family in Gaza, they have never received any meal. My wife's family never received any meals. I don't know where they bring these numbers. I don't know how they come up with these numbers, but these are not true at all. People have to go to the so-called distribution site, and they know they will be killed. And many people, when I post the videos or news of people getting killed while trying to get aid, they tell me, Mosab, tell them not to go. It's like, you know what? It's like, you know, when COVID hit and people knew that there is a dangerous virus, and as if you are asking, no, don't go out, don't go to buy things, don't go shopping, don't go visit, don't go to the hospital because there is COVID outside. People will not stop going out to get food for themselves and for their children, even though they know first they will be killed, and they know that they will not necessarily get food because it's very, very small amount of food that is getting in.
And Mosab, I wanted to ask you also the fear that among Palestinians that now that Israel has launched this war on Iran, that the rest of the world will shift its focus and forget about what is happening in Gaza, and that some people believe that this is precisely part of the plan of Netanyahu because Israel has been so discredited internationally by its attacks in Gaza. Your sense, are the Palestinians being forgotten at this moment?
You know what? I mean, first of all, people thought that, unfortunately, when Israel attacked Iran during the night, people thought that in some way that the focus of the Israeli airstrikes would be less because they are going to move their troops or move their F-16, their death warplanes somewhere else, although we don't wish anyone else in the world to be killed, right? So people thought that this would result in less pressure, less death in Gaza. But this is not what we have seen. Unfortunately, this is not a war in Gaza. It's a genocide that is happening while Israel is targeting everything, people seeking aid, people who are trying to get to the hospital, and people who do not find medicine to heal, do not have healthy food to heal. So people thought that this in some way would change the focus of this Israeli genocide somewhere else without necessarily resulting in the death of so many people in other places. But what we are watching right now is that Israel intensified its airstrikes. Yesterday they killed about more than 100 people, 60 of them, as I mentioned, while seeking aid in Beit Lahia and Rafah in Nusayrat, middle of Gaza. And today morning, just in the past 12 hours, Israel killed more than 40 people. So it's not like people in Gaza want people to move its killing machine somewhere else. But Israel is not letting anyone survive. Not in Gaza, not in Iran, not in Syria, not in Lebanon. They continue to kill in so many places, and they say, "Oh, we are attacked by so many people, and everyone wants us to disappear from the map," as if they are not disappearing, us Palestinians in Gaza. If you look at what they call evacuation orders or evacuation warning, yesterday 5 days ago, they posted a general photo map of Gaza, and they marked the areas that are called combat zones in red, and it was about 70% of the Gaza Strip. 1 day after that, they added one more square of red into the map. So they expanded their so-called combat zone. Yesterday, they added more red areas, which means that this area should be evacuated. And so Israel is expanding their combat zone, which is in one way or another, they are occupying this area militarily. And the more dangerous thing is not that they are marking these areas as combat zones. They are telling everyone, and this is in Arabic, they say, returning to this area would put your life at risk. So they are telling people that, okay, we are gonna tell you that this area is combat zone, and you are not allowed to return to it. They don't tell you that, okay, this is a combat zone for a month, for a week, for 2 weeks, or for a year. No, it is indefinitely a combat zone. If you go back there, and we ask them, oh, why did you kill this guy? They say, oh, he returned to a combat zone. Even though this guy or that family returned not to live because there is no life
Mosab, we
there.
have 30 seconds.
They just wanted to return to find something that they left because they couldn't carry everything, whether it's clothes, whether it's shoes, whether it's... I don't know. This is devastating. Israel is committing these war crimes live, and we are posting about them. We are publishing the names of these children who are killed, and no one cares.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.
We are just working for Israel. Do you know anyone, Theo, in your life who's like, yeah, we should go out and go to war with Iran? Like any of the folks you talk
Nobody.
to?
I felt like it was supposed to be America first. Like we're focusing on like, what are we doing to get things back into America, right?
Exactly.
To like increase like the purpose of being an American, to refill like our hearts with blood and make us feel something again here and make us be excited about being an American, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like that was what a lot of the energy was for. And then now that we're caught up here and it feels like we are just working for Israel, I think to a lot of people, it's, I don't know, you just really start to feel very disillusioned pretty quickly, and disillusioned in our leaders, right? You start to feel like, I don't know, at one point, neither one of these parties is helping us.
This is what's happening right now, just so in case.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran.
So this is the people. This is the people who actually control the government since the JFK assassination. These people who want to get us to a war with Iran. So they have to figure out, how do we get us to a war with Iran? They got us to a war with Iraq. They got us to a war in Afghanistan. They got us to a war in Libya. They got us to a war in Yemen. They got us to a war in Somalia, Sudan. They got us to a war in Syria. And so how do we get to a war with Iran? So it's not about who you vote for, because they do not control what's happening. Remember that movie? Remember what Nixon said in the movie? He doesn't control it. In the movie Nixon? Okay, so here we go. Watch.
Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests.
So let's see. Really? I don't have more to that? That's where that ends?
He then lists every war.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall he had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked. which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing, which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack.
So he's telling you, this is the insider blob spokesperson of the deep state, is telling you how every war you've ever fought was false, was built on false premises. It's a lie. And including Iraq, and now including Iran. They're all built on false premises. All of them. Same thing with Libya. Same thing with Afghanistan. Same thing with all of it. And they have to. And so Trump didn't even wait for a false flag. He just did what George Bush did and pretended that this country's a threat to us because they have weapons of mass destruction or they're very close to getting them. He did the exact.
Threat to Israel, who has nukes.
It's the exact. Yeah, Israel has nukes.
And by the way, Israel's not afraid to kill its own people at the drop of a hat if it thinks it could help Israel.
So
it's very what you could say about commies and bad guys, right?
So there's a thing called the Samson Declaration. You know what that is, right, Kurt?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's
yeah.
if Israel feels like they're about to lose a war, and there's going to be that they're going to take everybody down with them. They're going to use their nukes. Isn't that what the Samson Declaration?
Their nukes reach Europe. Nukes reach Europe. So if you see any of the big names over in Europe taking a summer vacation out of Europe, then you'll know we're close to the Samson option.
So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
It would be best if somebody else started the war. Guess who started the war? Israel. Israel started the war. And so now we have to go in to defend our ally.
This is best. We're in the best case scenario, Jimmy. This is the best possible thing. Oh, thank God. I thought some disaster was about to befall us.
One can combine other means of pressure with sanctions. I mentioned that explosion on August 17th. We could step up the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, people, Iranian submarines periodically go down. Someday one of them might not come up. Who would know why? We can do a variety of things if we wish to increase the pressure. I'm not advocating that. But I'm just suggesting that this is not a either-or proposition. It's just sanctions has to succeed or other things. We are in the game of using covert means against the Iranians. We could get nastier at that.
And they just did. And it's not covert. It's not covert. We did it.
Best case.
So they did it. So, again, this is on a complete betrayal of MAGA. This is a complete betrayal of Trump's own rhetoric. This is a complete betrayal of all of it. It's a complete betrayal of Tulsi Gabbard's anti-regime change stuff. This is it. And so now World War III is, we'll see, it's in motion. Steve Bannon has said that World War III had already started before Trump did this.
Yeah, of course.
And that's because Russia and China are involved via Iran.
You know, when MAGA, the thing that Reagan said first, by the way, it's not original, so I don't know if Bannon's the architect of that, but that was Reagan's thing. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It's called Make America Great Again. So everybody needs to get off the label bullshit, because the principles of it's a shorthand to say people didn't vote for this, okay? But don't get hung up on that, because you see how they turn it around on you? Are you loyal to MAGA or not? No, motherfucker, is MAGA loyal to me? That's what this was supposed to be about, is the government working for me, the guy that pays for it, right? They're not. They're going to turn it around, and now you're not loyal to the king no more. It happens every goddamn time.
It's kind of mind-blowing to see people take that tack. Like, you have to be loyal to Trump instead of loyal to America first. Again, when you're loyal to a politician instead of the policies or the ideas that the politician espouses, that's called cult. You're in a cult.
Yeah.
And that's how you wreck a country.
Well, South Korea did it for a while. And it worked great for them.
You're just like North Korea. You're just North Korea's they're loyal to their leader.
They're more organic, but South Korea is the same thing, but you do it for Samsung instead of the Kim Jong-un family. You're loyal to Samsung. And if you don't work for Samsung, you might as well take your own life. Do you know how miserable? The suicide rate for South Korea is way higher than North Korea. Do you know that? Because it's just North Korea with lights. That's the only difference.
All right, so I wanted to do a quick stream, and we'll see you tomorrow, but there it is. Maybe we'll see you. Who knows?
We'll see. Did Top Gun have a new movie coming out to tell us what's going to happen? That's my Bible now, Top Gun.
So I can show people, there's some people who, no matter, they don't care about the facts. They only care about their emotion. I love Trump. I'm loyal to Trump. And that's the wrong tack.
Oh, sign up to go to war then.
Yeah.
You're not a chump. And
yeah.
Trump would never have said that because he wouldn't say something that accurate.
This is a complete surrender to Israel, but by the United States. And this is and as Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson have pointed out, nobody voted for this. Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Toronto again, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, Concord, New Hampshire, Rutherford, New Jersey, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.
Around 60 people, including 20 children, have been killed in an attack on a housing complex in the capital, Tehran.
Israel has added Iranian children to the long list of children it kills. It also killed civilians, nuclear scientists, and even the person heading Iran's nuclear negotiations, Ali Shamkhani.
Today, we sat down with Ali Shamkhani. He said Iran also wants a deal.
An explosive investigation has revealed how the British Foreign Secretary threatened the International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor. The threats happened in a phone conversation in April 2024 between the UK's then Foreign Secretary David Cameron and the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan. It happened weeks before Khan called for arrest warrants against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and 3 of Hamas's senior leaders. In a heated phone call, Cameron reportedly told Khan that going ahead with the arrest warrants would be like dropping a hydrogen bomb, and that it would make the ICC look like it was losing the plot. Khan responded to Cameron's threats of withdrawing from the Rome Statute, saying that if it were to occur, then it would have to accept that the rules-based system would be dead. Cameron replied, saying that Khan was making a huge mistake and that the world was not ready for this. A month later, Karim Khan went ahead with the charges, indicating unknown figures had attempted to intimidate him and his team.
It is critical in this moment that my office and all parts of the court continue to conduct our work with full independence and impartiality. All attempts to impede, to intimidate, or to improperly influence the officials of this court cease immediately.
Well, it was a very heated conversation, and we have to remember that this was an unprecedented situation. Our sources tell us that Cameron repeatedly shouted over Khan, spoke aggressively, and that Khan had to ask to be able to finish his points. And Cameron told him he was making a very serious mistake. He told him you have to step back from the brink. He said you'd lose the dressing room. With the ICC's major allies, like the UK and the US. And he said ultimately, twice, that the UK would withdraw from the Rome Statute, which is the ICC's founding charter.
From what you understand, how did this phone call leave Karim Khan feeling?
Sources who spoke to him just hours after the call said that he seemed very upset. He seemed surprised by what had happened. He didn't reference Cameron directly, but he said he had had a call from a statesman, a world leader, who had told him, who had made this threat. And he said, I don't like feeling pressurized. He said, I won't say if it rises to blackmail. Khan said essentially this leader had debased the nation, had debased a people, and that they had no right to do that. So this seemed to be a very momentous moment in the history of the ICC, and so the history of the rules-based order, because Britain was one of the architects of that order. It was one of the countries that actually founded the ICC.
Hundreds have gathered here in central London in a defiant show of support for Palestine Action, the group that the government is trying to prescribe as a terrorist organisation.
Told you to get back.
Now, this protest started peacefully, but as you can see, some members who were protesting have now been detained by police. This demonstration was originally planned for outside Parliament, but at the last minute was banned by police and forced to relocate here. The government's actions follows last week's break-in at an Air Force base where activists painted military planes with red paint in protest at the UK's continued supply of weapons parts to Israel. Now, there were no injuries reported, but millions worth of damages.
This is a really troubling move for anyone who cares about freedom of speech, for the right to protest in this country. We're seeing an evaporation of our rights as we speak.
Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has drafted the prescription under the Terrorism Act, and that would put Palestine Action on the same group as Hamas and Al-Qaeda on UK's banned list, making support, membership, or even public endorsement punishable by up to 14 years in prison.
The majority of people all over the world and in this country are for peace, and there's only so many ways to do that, and this is one of the only ones that's still available to me.
This protester staging a peaceful sit-in was later handcuffed and removed. Protesters here say they're not just here to protest against actions in Gaza, but also a potential erosion of civil liberties.
So the attack begins, and I think a lot of people who are accepting the Israeli propaganda, which it draws on truth about Trump's real role here and the Trump administration's real role. I think a lot of people are refusing to accept that Trump could be this stupid, that he could just be so stupid that he would actually believe that he could green light this Israeli regime change war, and then Iran's foreign ministry and its negotiating team would come back to Oman and continue negotiating because they're so afraid and terrified of these powerful U.S. weapons. I think Trump really thinks that. He said so. He said, we hope that we can reinitiate negotiations. Where's the Matt Gaetz statement? Oh, here it is. I mean, this is the level of... Oh, we lost a son. This is the level of stupidity that prevails in Trump world. And this is supposed to be like the wise Vance faction of restrainers. Trump so clearly wants peace, says Matt Gaetz. And so here's Trump's statement. I gave Iran chance after chance, blah, blah, blah. Now they're all getting killed and they must make a deal. He thinks that they're intimidated and they're not going to be able to hit back. Certainly Iran's hardliners spoke bravely. He never really learned to write properly at a high school level, but they didn't know what was about to happen. They are all dead now and it will get worse. But now he's saying that he's also saying they should come back to the negotiating table and Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left and save what was once known as the Iranian Empire. And Iran is obviously, and Gaetz framing this as some kind of call for peace just shows how delusional they are. Iran has written off negotiations. Why should they negotiate when Israel has murdered their top negotiator, Ali Shamikhani? And this is that negotiator who operates directly under Iran's leader and negotiates on his behalf. He's one of many negotiators and many advisors to the leader. This is him in an interview with Richard Engel in late May.
Yes, we are ready.
Shamkhani is one of the few people in Iran authorized to speak about the sensitive negotiations.
We can definitely have better relations with the U.S.
Shamkhani said that Iran is willing to commit to never having a nuclear weapon, to getting rid of its stockpiles of highly enriched uranium, to only enriching to a level needed for civilian use, and to allow inspectors in to oversee it all, in exchange for lifting all sanctions immediately. He said Iran would accept that deal tonight.
So, I mean, that was what all the negotiators, those close to the negotiations I spoke to in Tehran, said as well. On background, Iran will abide by its obligations under the NPT, but they want a civilian nuclear program, and Israel would not accept that. So they killed him. They murdered him deliberately. Israel murdered every Hamas negotiator, every negotiator who was dealing with outside of Qatar. They can't assassinate people in Qatar. Every Hamas negotiator, starting with Salah Arori in his office in Beirut, a political figure whose name was on all negotiation deals post-October 7th. And it culminated with the killing of Hania in Tehran in his hotel while he was at the new president's inauguration after the strangely timed death of Ibrahim Raisi. So they killed a negotiator, and then Trump says, come back to the table. I green-lighted that attack on that guy who is agreeing to major compromises, major sacrifices. And this is where Trump still is. So I think that, it's time that we conclude a few things. First of all, this is not an America First war. America First is dead. MAGA was always a branding campaign to just bring angry white people back into the fold of the corporate neocon-run Republican Party, using Buchananite language and invoking Pat Buchanan's 1992 culture war speech to just basically dupe angry white men to go back into the duopoly after they got screwed again and again. And now here we are about to fight a war on behalf of Israel, authorized by the king, the cult leader of MAGA. It's dead. The second thing we have to acknowledge is Trump is functionally retarded and we cannot be attributing 5D chess to Donald Trump anymore. His negotiations on Gaza were a scam that just allowed Israel to remobilize for another stage of the Holocaust. His negotiations with Russia have completely failed. And his negotiations with Iran were at least used and instrumentalized by Netanyahu as a ruse. And in talking to some of the Iranian diplomats close to the negotiations, they wanted to ascribe some kind of motive to Trump that was rational and intelligent and trying to deduce what he was actually doing. And he actually didn't know what he was doing. His team is just overwhelmed, has no idea what they're doing. And now Rubio, in his statement, is pleading with Iran not to attack U.S. assets and declaring that the U.S. had nothing to do with this. Well, if the U.S. is sharing intelligence and the U.S. is providing the diplomatic green light and diplomatic cover and weapons, and including the THAAD system and defending Israel, and it has THAAD operators inside Israel, the U.S. is involved. And this is all on Trump's back. So it's time to just wake up to reality here.
دخلوني على غرفة وعبوها شرطة وطين كلها كانت مليانة، وإجت محققة ست لابسة أسود. أنا اعتقدت ست ممكن المشاعر الإنسانية تحركها، لكن المفاجأة إنها كانت فظيعة أكثر منهم كمان. كانت لابسة أسود بأسود، كانت لابسة كندرة كعب عالي رفيع. طبعا أنا مكلبشة، صارت تدعس ببطني وأنا مرمية على الأرض. كانت تقرص جسمي كله، تقول لي أنا بدي أهلك وأحضرك عشان يجي واحد ينام معك.
اشلحي أواعيكي. طبعا مش رحتش أواعية، اجوا شلحوني غصب عني، عروني بشكل كامل وربطوا إيدي بالكربشات للخلف ورموني على الأرض.
These are the words of Aisha Odeh and Rasmiya Odeh, two freed Palestinian prisoners recounting in a rare interview some of the many episodes of brutal sexual violence they were subjected to while being imprisoned by Israel in 1969.
This woman says she was taken to sedate a man and she was nude searched over and over again and filmed, and then she was raped twice by Israeli male soldiers, 2 of them at a time, while videotaping her.
This is Kifaya Khrem, International Advocacy Officer at the Women's Center for Legal Aid and Counseling, providing in March detailed accounts of sexual and gender-based violence committed by Israeli forces and illegal settlers against Palestinian women. Between these rare videotape testimonies from the 1960s and this year's latest accounts, lies a decades-long Israeli practice of sexual violence against Palestinian women, mostly undocumented and hidden in silence. Since its violent foundation in 1948, Israel has been using sexual violence as a tool, among many others, to suppress Palestinian resistance. Although these women come from different regions, Gaza, the occupied West Bank, occupied East Jerusalem, the pattern remains consistent. What has changed, however, are methods of assault and the increasing difficulty in proving these acts occurred.
הוא תפס אישה, חתיכה צעירה, נכנס לבית אחד, הכין חדר מיטות, מיטה, ורצה לזיין אותה.
הילדה חזרה סמרטוט يعني. אחד אנס שם איזה ילדה בת 16, משהו כזה.
Rape and other forms of sexual violence are considered war crimes by the International Criminal Court. However, in the occupied West Bank, sexual assault is defined under the outdated Jordanian Penal Code, which limits rape to penetration by a male organ. This excludes other forms of sexual violence recognized by the UN, such as assault with objects, forced nudity, and sexualized beatings. Many Palestinian women are unaware of the broader UN definitions, which can prevent them from clearly articulating their experiences to UN investigators. Israel, despite being a UN member, takes advantage of these legal gaps and does not apply the UN's broader standards in the occupied territories.
She says she was also raped by an inspection device by a female soldier more than once. They inserted the inspection device in her rectum.
كانوا اثنين ووحدة حطت إجرها على رأسي بهاي وشخص آخر ثبت ركبه في بطني والكربشات تحت يعني تحت ظهري بإيدي تحت ظهري وبده يفتفت في صدري والشخص آخر مسك إجري وثبتهم بده يحاول يدخل لي عصاي بهالأمر ورغم كل الصيحة أبداً هم مستمرين يعني.
Sexual violence is not confined to detention centers. It occurs regularly at Israeli checkpoints where women face degrading searches and are often forced to expose themselves.
تمام. رجيلك بغلاقيت كوش يعني كتان. נכון? שלא יבקשו يعني תעודת זהות? שלא יגידו يعني ג'יב עוויה? أنا صغير?
أنا صغير.
طب 17 قديش ده؟ 15 عاد بد 19 إذا كوس.
There's even a specific checkpoint in Hebron's H2 area where women say they are likely to be exposed to soldiers' genitals.
Woman who was heading to university, and when she got to the checkpoint, and because of the structure of the checkpoint, it's closed, so nobody sees what goes on in there. So if you get into the checkpoint, nobody sees because it has, I can show you pictures, but it's closed, so it's not exposed to the public. So when she got in there, she said the soldier stood in a corner in which the cameras wouldn't videotape him. He knew which blind spot for the camera. And then he exposed his genitals and he said, come take a look, come touch it, in Arabic.
The threat of sexualized humiliation is so pervasive that many Palestinian women avoid going to work, to school, or even outside for daily tasks. Similarly, during home raids, Israeli soldiers have stripped women naked and touched them inappropriately in front of their male family members, often while blindfolded or handcuffed, making sexual gestures and threats. These aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a systemic state-endorsed campaign designed to dehumanize and dominate.
اللحظة اللي كانوا معريني ودخلوا أبوي وحاولوا يجبروني ينام معي في التحقيق وأنا معرية. هاي يعني أكثر اللحظات صعوبة. أنا عروني وأخذوني عند الشباب عشان يعترفوا أنا عريانة وربطوني يعني ربطوا إيدي وربطوا إجري وأنا عريانة تماما. هاي ما كانش في داخلي إنه والله واحد غريب عم بيشوفني أو شو اللي عم بيصير أو يعني رغم إنه التنتين يعني تعرية وتعذيب أمام الآخرين بس قدام أبوي لا كانت المسألة أكثر يعني كنت أنا يعني خايفة على أبوي خايفة يعني هاي قضية حساسة كثير يعني خايفة يروح فيها أبوي يعني زي كأنه انضرب إشي أساسي ومهم في داخله.
The social stigma surrounding sexual violence in occupied Palestine makes it extremely difficult to document, and the Israeli forces exploit this, knowing most of these women won't speak about the sexual abuse they endured.
The story of the Ajlouni family, which happened in July 2023. It's when Israeli forces invaded the home of this family and they asked women under the threats of large dogs to undress. It was female soldiers. And they made the women walk around the house naked. One organization reported that and they published that in a newspaper. And then the implication of that was quite catastrophic on the human rights, because we had an interview on the radio with one of the tribe leaders of Hebron, which is a prominent figure of the Hebron society. And the thing he said was, this was a scandal, and this human rights organization shouldn't have exposed these women in such matter. This is one of the reasons women don't talk.
But it's not just social isolation that silences these women. Fear of retaliation plays a significant role. Israeli military officers have used threats to silence them, including phone calls from senior officers warning them not to testify. Some women have been detained after sharing their stories with human rights groups. Others are summoned for so-called interviews used as intimidation tactics. The fear of being detained or worse keeps many silent, even when they desperately want to be heard. In March, the UN released a 40-page report titled More Than a Human Can Bear, detailing testimonies and evidence of sexual, reproductive, and gender-based violence by Israeli forces against Palestinians, men, women, and children across the occupied territories since October 7, 2023.
كانوا بعض الجنود يلمسوا المناطق الحساسة للنساء أثناء التفتيش أو أثناء البص، يعني طريق السجن. في بنات تم التحرش فيهم في البص. في جندي إنه البنات في منهم لابسين قمصان، فكان يدخل إيده يعني جوا للبنت ويتحرش فيها. وإذا عملت صوت أو صرخت يضربها على راسها.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu refused to cooperate with the investigation, rejecting the council and its processes. Despite mounting evidence and ongoing documentation of sexual violence by Israeli forces, including incidents openly bragged about by Israeli officials and soldiers, no serious measures have been taken to hold Israel accountable, particularly by the international community, despite the ICJ's advisory opinion in the ICC case. Yet, Israel's impunity persists.
كنا نسمع عن دعايات الصهيونية وهم يحكوا عن النازية وأشكال التعذيب لليهود، لكن حقيقة اللي شفته وعشته لحظة بلحظة كان أفظع من أي نوع من التعذيب اللي كانوا بيحكوا إنهم هم تعذبوا من قبل النازية. كان تعذيب فظيع.
بتذكر إنه في الألم بيطلع من باطن الأرض، بيجي هيك من جسمي بيطلع زي الزوبعة بيوصل للسماء، كأنه كل الظلم اللي في التاريخ البشري وقع من قبل البشر على البشر كنت أحسه كله بيتجمع في هذيك الليلة، بينصب هم أعمالهم بكموا وبينصب علي.